about 80% of you, this is going to be the best Mercurial ever made. And I'm not even kidding. But that does leave 20% of you that this might not quite be for. So, which camp do you fall into? Let's find out with this review of the Nike Mercurial Vapor 16 Elite in this Mad Ambition Pack colorway. And let's get it out of the way early. It's the same as the Superfly. Superfly 10 is just this with a collar. The little heel difference makes no difference. I've tried them both. Moving on to the review. We're going to start with the upper, and do note that these have been my primary boots for about a month now, so these have had a serious amount of testing time. The upper itself is grip knit all the way from this seam here round the boot to this seam here. Everything behind it is atom knit, and then you've got fly knit covering in the centerpiece to make what has become a fairly synonymous one-piece upper for Nike. The best part about the upper though is the grip knit. This is fantastic. It's just so unbelievably soft, and even straight out of the box, the way that it is, it just feels and it molds around your foot. We'll get into fit and comfort a little bit later, but I adore how soft this upper is. Now, Andrew and I, the Lockhart Boot Blog on the Football Boot Hour podcast, recently said that this is the best upper ever placed on a Mercurial, and I am absolutely willing to stand by that. But softness isn't the only excellent thing about this upper. The actual grip knit itself and the amount of grip is also phenomenal. It has this very waxy feeling that is all across the boot. It's a very consistent touch. I really, really like the amount of grip that it gives me on the ball. It's very Goldilocks. It's not too much. It's not too little. It really is well balanced. But also worth noting that it is phenomenal in wet weather. And by that, I don't mean it gets more grippy or anything. I mean, it still delivers that same consistent touch no matter how wet it gets. And that is really, really impressive for me. This grip knit is just incredible. Now, I do have a small gripe, and it comes down to this swoosh here and this swoosh here. They cover over the grip knit, and here, obviously, you've got to dribble potentially in that area, receive passes over in this area, and while it hasn't made a huge impact, it's definitely an area of inconsistency, and that's a huge area. You'd want that to be hollow, or for the grip knit to actually shine through. Very much fashion over function here, and I don't love it. I think with updated designs, Nike definitely need to do something about that and have that grip knit shine through across the whole of the grip knit area. I thought I would have a similar gripe on the instep of the boot here, where you have this seam, it runs back into atom knit, and you essentially have an inconsistent surface area. You've got grip knit here, you have atom knit here, and realistically, you want that to be as consistent as possible. And I probably would like Nike to still do that, to maybe move that seam, find another way of providing some structure to this area of the boot and have it as more consistent. But I actually quite like the way that the atom knit feels on the instep, and I think overall it's not a deal breaker, but I think that is an area that can be improved by just giving a more consistent feel and moving the atom knit. Speaking of the physical touch, we've spoken about the grip and how that's going to give you a really nice tactile, waxy feeling on the ball, that little bit of added control without it being overbearing. The grip knit itself is also thinner than what you're going to get from the GX2 or the Lunar 2, and that is very much Mercurial. You've still got a one-to-one feeling. You don't feel like there's a big amount of padding or anything interrupting your touch. It's still very direct. Now, I wouldn't call it crazy barefoot or anything like that. You're not going to get that kind of sting when you strike a ball, but it does have a very one-to-one feeling, and I feel like I'm directly in contact with the ball at all times with a little bit of added help from that grip knit. It's all massively positive. With the grip knit being so soft, you of course potentially run into an issue whereby if you make hard cuts, is the boot going to stay with you? Is the boot going to remain responsive, or are you going to have spillover? You're going to start pushing against the edge of the boot and kind of foot spills over. That's where this atom knit does come in. Atom knit is basically fly knit that's been heated and pressed. So it's a much more structurally sound material, but maybe not as soft. The atom knit keeps the upper nice and responsive. Now, it's not absolutely incredible at it, but it definitely is a welcome addition to the upper of the boot. So the upper should appeal to everybody, whether you're part of that 80% that I mentioned that are going to find this the best Mercurial ever, or that 20% that might find a few issues as we go on with the video. But overall, this is going to be an upper for everybody. We are going to try something new on Boot Wizard. You let me know if you like it down in the comments. Of course, like the video and get subscribed while you're there as well. I'm going to give each section either an up or a down, depending on if it is good or not. If it's good, it gets an up. If it's bad, it gets a down. It's a very binary system, but it should give you a better indication in the areas that you're looking for what's good and what's bad, and maybe an overall gist of what the boot is about at the end. Please don't take it as a gospel, this is going to define exactly what the boot is based on the score, but I think it could be useful to all of you watching. So for the upper, we're going to give it an up because it is fantastic. Let's move on to an area that's going to have the most asked questions and also definitely see some of that 80-20 split, and that is the fit. The first question I'm going to get asked loads is, are these good for wide feet? And quite simply, the answer is yes. If you have a wider foot, these are very accommodating. They have a reasonably wide shape anyway, and then the softness of that material is just going to allow you a lot of space to get your foot in and find yourself a comfortable fit. These boots are crazy, crazy comfortable. A lot of that is coming from the upper, but overall, they are just a stupid comfortable boot. So we're going to give comfort an up, and if you are looking for a wider fit boot, these are going to work for you, and this is where the 80-20 comes in. Most people are looking for a more comfortable boot and something that is going to fit most foot types. Let's call it an everyman style of fit, whereas you're going to have some hardcore speed boot and mercurial heads who are going to want that Vapor 8 crazy close, kind of sucked in, tight, restrictive fit, and that's just not this. If that's the kind of fit you're looking for, this boot isn't going to be for you, but for the majority of people, the fit on this is going to be super, super comfortable. Now, doesn't mean it's without flaws. There is a little bit of dead space under the arch here, which I don't particularly like, which unless you have a flatter foot or a wider foot, you're definitely not going to fill. I don't love that, and I'm not the only person that's experienced it. I've also found a little bit of a gap just in this section here. I can kind of get a finger down here. Again, I don't love it, but it's absolutely not make or break. But if you do have a slimmer heel, it might not be ideal. When it comes to the heel, the padding is absolutely exceptional. It adds that comfort that I just spoke about. It holds onto my heel really well, and the heel lockdown is very, very nice. I really enjoy it, but it's not the greatest heel lockdown you're ever going to come across. You're not going to feel really sucked in, held in place, but it is certainly good, and it maintains that comfort. The comfort in this Mercurial is excellent. If you do have a narrower foot, these are probably still going to be fine for you, but just be aware that little dead spot under your arch and the space kind of in this area here particularly is probably going to be exacerbated, and that's something that annoys you. This might not be the boot for you. If you're wondering what size to buy, these are my usual US 8, UK 7 that I buy in most Nike boots, and they fit me pretty much perfectly in length. There's a tiny bit of room at the end, but it is very consistent with what I experience from Nike boots. So if you're wondering what to buy, go with your normal Nike size. The toe box isn't too narrow or too pointed, so you're actually going to have a good amount of comfort there as well, while it is still short enough or small enough in order to be able to get under the ball nicely. I have no issues here at all. It's also not too pointed or narrow compared to some boots that have been around recently. So again, in terms of width, the midfoot is going to be absolutely fantastic for you wide-footed people, and the forefoot is going to be okay. It's not the worst, it's not going to be the best. But for the fit overall, with it being a normal length and there not being any weirdness or anything like that, we're going to give the sizing an up as well. Let's move on to the tooling, and you may have noticed in the comfort section I did not discuss the Air Zoom unit. That's because I want to do it right here, so we'll get onto that in just a second. You can see this FG stud pan is super aggressive. This is going to be one of those that the 20% of you that want that hardcore mercurial, you're going to love it. It is incredibly aggressive, great straight line speed, and Nike have really gone back to that classic mercurial DNA with the chevron bladed studs that we now expect. Moved away from what they tried to do with the last generation, which is a little bit more multi-directional and just giving you exactly what you mercurial heads are going to want, and I do genuinely really like it. Can I recommend this for an AG pitch? Absolutely not. I just don't think it's going to be safe enough. Obviously, you ruin your warranty as well. He says, as all of the shots that I'm putting up on this video are definitely of me using this on an AG pitch, but I'm not recommending it. I really enjoy these two studs up the top here. They give you some really great additional traction, and everything being pushed out onto the edge really does a great job as well. These forefoot fins here are actually designed to engage the Air Zoom unit, and they don't do a lot when it comes to traction. So let's talk about that Air Zoom unit. Let's have a look at it from the inside. He says, here we go. So hopefully you can see that, and there is a full Air Zoom unit. It's big air bubble that runs from the front 2/3 of the boot, runs from here up to here, and it's different to the previous generation, which was kind of little air pockets within one big unit. This is just one big unit, which absolutely increases the comfort. I can't express highly enough how comfortable this boot is and why 80% of people are going to absolutely go for this, because it is so damn comfortable. That doesn't mean there's not some flaws with the Air Zoom though, because I do feel a little bit like I'm sat on top of it. Mainly because I am, but I don't like the feeling of being sat up on top of this little air bubble. What I would actually prefer personally is to go back to something like we had on the Vapor 11, 12, 13, which is the anatomical sole plate where you sat down into it, which is actually the exact opposite of this. But that's not what Nike have gone for here. Nike have gone for that whole comfort feeling, which the Air Zoom gives you, which takes away from some of that hardcore speed boot responsiveness and connectiveness that you might want if you're part of that 20%. But if you're part of the 80%, you're going to be like, I don't really care. This is super comfortable and still an absolutely fantastic football boot. These forefoot fins do definitely help engage that Air Zoom unit, but the one thing they don't do, or the Air Zoom unit doesn't do, that Nike have kind of advertised, is I don't think it gives you any kind of additional propulsion. It's not going to actually help you push off, which is kind of what Nike is saying it'll do. It's more of a comfort element, and that's completely fine. The one issue that I did have with it is that because of the way this is positioned and the way the studs are positioned right out on the edge, is that I still did end up with a little bit of stud pressure right on the edges of these two studs here. Now, it's probably because they're just falling slightly outside the realm of this Air Zoom unit, and it's one of the only areas where I felt that maybe making it slightly less aggressive here would have been beneficial, just tapering in the studs ever so slightly. But again, not really a deal breaker. I showed kind of the snapback there while I was discussing the propulsion, and it's decent. Again, this is an 80%, 20%. 80% of people are going to be completely happy with this. This is going to be definitely snappy enough, responsive enough, and you're going to feel aggressive enough. 20% of people, hardcore speed boot nerds, are going to be like, I want more. I want more, 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 because we always want more when that is the case. But I still think it's perfectly adequate. Now, I said in my initial thoughts review that the Air Zoom unit kind of forced the front of the boot to kind of give up in a certain area, like kind of lost all structure, which it absolutely does. However, you never really reach that point when you're running or pushing off, so it's not really become an issue during use. Something I do really like is the stiffness and rigidity through the midfoot and the heel. I just think it holds everything together really nicely and it makes the boot nice and responsive, or again, 80/20, it is responsive enough without being crazy. I think overall I will give the responsiveness an up, but it is something that I would love to see improved slightly. And I think that could be done by just giving you a stiffer forefoot. In terms of the sole plate overall, for the majority of people, I actually wouldn't recommend buying the FG sole plate. The AG, which I reviewed recently, is actually a better all-around option. And if this kind of boot and this kind of comfortable feeling boot with this touch and the grip knit is something you want, I think that the AG is just going to be more beneficial for more people, and you can use it on multiple surfaces. It's good enough for a nicer FG pitch, and you only really want the FG if you really want that super aggressive feeling, which isn't going to be the majority of people. So my recommendation is actually to go out and buy the AG version of this. Again, if you do want to buy this boot, any variation of this boot, please use the links down in the top pinned comment or description, because it does help support the channel and I appreciate it. So the outsole overall, whether that is the FG or the AG, I'm going to give it an up. It's not without flaws, but it is overall very good. And you do have the aggressive option or the less aggressive AG option if that is your jam. The ups are currently running away with it, so I'm going to throw in a few quick downs just to balance things up. I'm also here reviewing the Mad Ambition pack colorway, which to me has a different fit to what I got in the original launch Bowerman pack colorway, and I'm not the only person that experienced that. And I think that difference is kind of poor that you get that from the launch to one of the newer colorways. Shouldn't be that big of a difference, and it does impact things and it makes things difficult, and I think that that is definitely justification for another down. But the Mad Ambition pack is definitely, for me so far, the one to go and get. The fit is the best when compared to the launch colorway. I'm also going to throw a down in there for the grip knit upper itself being almost impossible to clean. Now, I've done a pretty good job with these, but you can see every element of the actual grip knit, every line is dirty, every single one, and it is really, really hard to get these clean. It's not a reason to not buy the boot, and if this is a big issue for you, go and buy the shadow pack, the blackout, but it's kind of annoying. I get why they've done it. They've reduced the number of layers in the upper from 5 to 3. One of the layers that's gone is the top coating. You don't need it with the grip knit, but it is bloody impossible to clean. So yeah, I'm going to give that a down as well. As a side note, completely not worth an up or down. I think this colorway is far too close to the launch Bowerman colorway. They should have flipped the colors. It just looks too similar for me. Anyway, let's go and talk about the lockdown. So the lockdown on this is decent. It's not anything special and it is okay. Again, 80/20. 80% of people, this is not going to bother. 20% of people, this is the thing that is really going to bother you. What I would have loved to have seen is Nike use some of the technology from the previous generation and tried to incorporate it into this new upper. They used this Roman sandal type design where they had straps that ran across the boot in certain areas to really push your foot down and lock it into the boot, and I absolutely love the lockdown on the previous generation, and you just don't get that here. It's adequate. My foot's not sliding around the place. I don't feel like I'm gonna really go anywhere crazy, but I suppose that is something that comes with having an upper that is this soft. It's a bit of a trade-off. So again, most people, it isn't really gonna bother. I really would have loved to see some more intense lockdown throughout the whole boot now, and I think this just speaks to my own personal bias maybe, because I'm talking about wanting more lockdown, wanting to be sat down into the sole plate slightly. It's just a different feeling, a different style of Mercurial, which is potentially an old style of Mercurial now. This is the new Mercurial style, and this is the everyman boot, the boot for the 80%, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's delivering a boot that is of a really high standard to a huge range of people that maybe haven't been able to wear Mercurials before. I said the previous generation of Mercurial was good enough for people with wide feet. This is even better. If you've never worn a Mercurial before because you have a wider foot, try this one. If you've never worn a Mercurial before because you don't like the way that they fit and feel, try this one. If you want to buy a comfortable football boot, this to me is genuinely one of the most comfortable boots on the market. Although again, I do definitely recommend the AG sole plate. So for 80% of you, if you're thinking about this, go and do it. It's amazing. Do it with the links down in the top pin comment and description. Thank you. For 20% of you that are wanting a really old style Mercurial or something more aggressive, maybe this isn't for you, but this upper is so good that it might just be worth a shot, especially if you do want that more aggressive sole plate. So overall, I really like this. It's going into my boot bag. It has been in my boot bag. I love the way that I can just slip this on. It feels comfortable. I'm good to go. I'm a big fan. I genuinely am a big fan of this boot. And the overall, that gets it another up. So are you 20% or are you 80%? Let me know down in the comments. And if you are 80% and you want to check out my comparison review of the FG versus the AG, click this video right here.